Hi, and good afternoon. Welcome to Investor Place. My name is Joanna Macris. With us this afternoon, I'm very pleased to have Atul Bhatnagar, CEO of Cambium Networks. Atul, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Joanna. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, let's dive in. So talk to us about Cambium's heritage. You were originally spun out of Motorola, correct?
Yes. So in October 2011, we were spun out of Motorola, basically two divisions of Motorola. They came together. One was a point-to-point fixed wireless broadband, basically connecting buildings, connecting campuses, for bulk bandwidth. And the second division was point-to-multipoint, which is distributing bandwidth, say in a campus or in a subdivision. And those two divisions formed Cambium Networks. Motorola always had just fantastic RF expertise, the wireless expertise, high quality products, and in very tough terrains, tough conditions, good solid quality. But at that time, competition was getting pretty intense because the innovation in the fixed wireless broadband there was probably not as aggressive as it should be. So when we started as a Cambium Networks, in almost 10 years, but this year, by the way, we'll celebrate our decade of excellence since we came out of Motorola. And we really focused on innovation. And as we have this conversation, I'll share how we spurred the innovation, how we spurred the pace of new products. And that's our story, in the innovation and the pace of new products and disruptive products. And that's how we became a growth company.
Great. So Cambium serves three primary target markets: point-to-multipoint, point-to-point, and enterprise Wi-Fi. For the generalists among us, can you explain the technologies, how they link together, and how it all works?
I think the way to think about this is the house plumbing, because I always use a plumbing example because that's understandable. So, when you do plumbing under your house, you're doing half-inch pipe or quarter-inch pipes. That's distributing water in your house. So that's kind of the Wi-Fi, the last 100 meters or 300 meters, basically the last distance or the edge, real edge. Then comes really point to multipoint. That is from your house to maybe the nearest water tower or reservoir in the city. And that reservoir is distributing to multiple subdivisions. That's point to multipoint. Then you have big reservoirs interconnected, right? That's point to point, where you really move the bulk, large volumes of data. So point to point connect those buildings or campuses. Point to multipoint distributes within a campus to the last, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. And then the Wi-Fi distributes the bandwidth in the last, say, hundreds of meters. That we call wireless fabric. So the wireless fabric goes from hundreds of meters to tens of kilometers to, in many cases, 100-kilometer point to point. All wireless, no digging trenches, very easy to deploy. And that's why we say, if it can be wireless, it will be wireless.
Fascinating. So you're sitting in a massive $22 billion total addressable market for your wireless solutions. There are also lots of trends that appear to be working in 5G's favor right now. So tell us about some of the trends that are shaping demand for Cambium's products.
Okay. There are probably three drivers which is driving our growth. I think the first driver is, this is worldwide, broadband is a lifeline for every community, every home, every place in the world, post-COVID. So that's the first key driver. The service providers are increasing speeds and feeds, and networks have to scale. They have to have more capacity. I think the second driver is enterprises also are beefing up now for more bandwidth, more video. You just look at the amount of video everybody's doing. The networks in the enterprises have to be more secure, more scalable, more cloud savvy. All those things are driving the need for an overhaul of the enterprise networks. And what that means is that the Wi-Fi, every 4 to 5 years, Wi-Fi goes through a change, new standard comes, new performance, new scalability. So Wi-Fi 6 is not doing that in the enterprise. So that's the second key driver for Cambium. The third driver is that standards are now maturing, like 5G is arriving. And 5G is legitimizing the use of fixed wireless broadband, both licensed lightly licensed, unlicensed frequencies. What that basically means is that fixed wireless broadband enters mainstream. So for next few years, as 5G gets traction, we will get more opportunity to really lead the fixed 5G arena. Those are probably the three drivers. A very long-term driver is industrial places, oil and gas, mining, in trains, locomotive, all the transportation stuff. They all have to digitize. So you measure efficiency, you automate more, you provide more security, more video surveillance. That means more bandwidth needed, more glue to hold things together. That's probably a long-term driver. We call it industrial IoT.
You're competing in a space where you've got lots of big tech companies in your backyard. Cisco, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Huawei, a number of big tech companies are also in the wireless broadband space. So tell us about how Cambium is winning in your market and how you differentiate.
Yeah. We are very focused in mid-tier because I think while there are large enterprises, very large service providers, the sales cycles and the project sizes and scale is also much larger in scale. It takes very long to close the deal. They are large deals. We believe that a lot of innovation and a lot of growth right now is happening in the mid sector because mid sector is catering to developing communities all over the world. And these developing communities were the ones who were left behind, who didn't have the connectivity. So we find that our focus, both in enterprise and service providers, and the mid-level has given us the growth. Like publicly we announced this year, we will be growing 28 to 31% year over year. So that kind of gives you an idea that the mid-tier, how it's expanding worldwide, SMEs and mid-tier enterprises and service providers are really delivering that needed bandwidth for so many communities and so many enterprises.
So, you mentioned a key area of focus being the ISP space. Can you tell us why the market for broadband wireless is so important and why it's underserved right now?
Yeah, when you look at the worldwide, out of 7 billion people, roughly, I would say half are either unconnected or underconnected. Right? What I mean by the underconnected is look at every home or every situation where you need a broadband, where you had one user, say in a home, now you have 3 or 4 users, where you used to only peak in your data, maybe 5 to 10 in the evening. Now you're peaking from all the way from 7 a.m. to probably 11 p.m. So patterns have changed. What it means is that the networks have to scale. So the wireless internet service providers and in general, the internet service providers, they are the ones who are scaling up the network. They're delivering. And a lot of these communities where people are unconnected or underconnected are remote. They are tough terrains. They are farmlands. They are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities across the world. Right in America, there are probably 23 million plus homes. They're either unconnected or underconnected. So that's why I use the word, I don't say developing country. I say developing community because these developing communities are all over the world. And these internet service providers are playing a very key role, bridging, bringing digital inclusion.
You also mentioned that you have an important opportunity in the Internet of Things, particularly in industries like energy, oil and gas. Tell us about some of the activity you're seeing there.
Sure. I think in general, you're seeing a massive drive towards digitization in every industry. What it means is you take the value chain and then you divide the value chain in measurable chunks. You put sensors and you backhaul that data wirelessly most of the time, and you measure the efficiency. And then you improve every part of the value chain. This is the macro driver. And what that means is that every value chain will get deconstructed, will get digitized, you'll measure, you'll improve. That means more data we are backhauling, we're bringing. That means more wireless fabric going everywhere. That's one key driver. I think the second driver in some of this is that these industrial complexes are remote and they are pretty large, inside, and they're real time. So whether it's oil and gas, offshore to onshore communications, or it is mining, where you're going up the shaft with a lot of telemetry data, or you are railways, where the yards have lots of engines being maintained. You have to have outdoor Wi-Fi, very resilient, very high quality. So we are finding that outdoor in general is becoming a key driver. We used to focus on buildings, in building, get the Wi-Fi. Now, if you're a school or a hospital, parking, retail, parking lots have become an important transaction points. So we find that some of our expertise in outdoor wireless is very much in demand as people want to blanket, not just inside the enterprise, but outside the enterprise or in the smart cities or in local communities, or in playgrounds, campgrounds, bring broadband. That's the driver which is basically pulling some of our products.
Yeah. So you hit on enterprise as being an important growth area for your company. And last quarter was really a breakout quarter for your Wi-Fi business. I think it grew over 50% sequentially. So
Yes.
talk to us about, what's happening and why you're seeing this rapid demand.
When we were growing year over year, I think 2019, we grew, I think 81% or so year over year. And 2020 was a COVID year. Even in the COVID year and our main enterprise segments are education, hospitality, retail, some healthcare, but mostly those segments were hit hard in COVID, like hospitality, for example, or even education in the first few quarters. In 2021, we see markets coming back. People are traveling again in some regions. Education is figuring a way out to open the schools. So that's what we are seeing. We grew very well in Q2. I think year over year, we grew 139%, something like that. So we see markets coming back for us. And we also see that the technological transition in Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi 6 is happening. People are going for more secure communications in the enterprise. Because when you have a chance to bring the right infrastructure, you don't bring legacy. You bring forward-looking infrastructure, which can give you next 4 to 5 years. And that's the opportunity we see. And we are definitely delivering to that. And that's why we're growing.
Yeah. So in addition to COVID, almost every company making a physical product has been impacted by some sort of global supply chain shortage. And you yourself have mentioned that this could play an impact for you as well. Tell us about what you're seeing, any potential easing that could take place over the next few quarters.
The way, Joanna, I see is that everyone is impacted. I think that we have seen the costs in the supply chain going up from freight to parts over the last many, many months. Number one. Number two, the chip paucity is happening because you have demand coming from automotive. Remember, I will tie it to digitization. Now, digitization is happening in every industry. So that means they use more memory chips, more processors, and a whole lot of analog to digital devices or chips. That's creating the paucity, I think, for everybody. Now, we have been very proactive. We started working on the supply chain as early as last November, December. We increased our forecast. But net, I think Q3, definitely there's tightness in supply chain. We see that. But my anticipation is as we talk to different chip industry executives, I think there will be improvement in Q4. And then it'll continuously go in the right direction, Q1 and Q2 next year. And by maybe mid next year, we can have some semblance of normalcy. Now that's kind of as far as we can see. But we're dealing with that by prioritizing things and by working very closely with our partners and making sure we keep delivering on the growth.
Excellent. There's also a lot of excitement around Cambium and the FCC's $20 billion Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is designed to serve underserved Americans with broadband. Tell us a little bit about the role of that fund and how your business may see an impact.
Sure. We have been participating in a fund called Connect America Fund. There was a phase 1 and then phase 2. So we have been helping many developing communities in US, indigenous tribes, for example, those type of communities which were behind, and we had to bring them into the digital age. So we have good experience how to deliver the service level agreements, quality, and yet keep affordability. And that's one of our secret sauce as a company. We use latest chips. We use very advanced software algorithms. That's how we maintain affordability, yet we deliver mission critical performance and quality. That's the formula we use. And that formula applies very well to some of these digital inclusion or eliminating digital divide type of projects, whether it's Connect America Fund or this RDOF, Rural Development Opportunity Fund. So I think it's a long range program. It's a 10-year fund. And based on our experience from before, we will again participate in that. There are about 11 or so, like top 11 or so awardees. We are working with 5 to 6 already. It's a long range thing. We'll start to see good impact, I think, in 22, and then it'll run for probably first 6 years with majority of the fund, and then the last maybe 3-4 years more maintenance type of thing. So we're definitely excited about this long range opportunity.
What about 5G? I mean, where do you think we are? Have we truly hit an inflection point for mass adoption of 5G? And where and how ubiquitous can 5G truly be?
Joanna, if you look at telecommunication standards, every 10 years, maybe 12 years, there is a shift. It's a little longer range than the enterprise networks. So I think 5G is bringing significant advantages. Needless to say, speed. You will have blazingly fast networks, and it's a killer app. You're moving 80 miles an hour, and you have blazingly fast connections for HD video and things like that. So I think that's its number one benefit, the next generation of speeds and feeds. But it is also bringing low latency, so you can have networks which are more real time. It's enhancing standards with those type of enhancements or features. It has millimeter wave, but it means it's very high frequencies, which give you multi-gigabit speeds and feeds. And then lastly, 5G in a lot of ways has backwards compatibility into certain things. So your systems will evolve towards 5G. So I think in general, these things take time. These are very high capex items. So you will see the mobility part definitely get going, maybe in more advanced communities, more dense cities, where people can afford higher ARPU, and then it'll percolate down to tier 2, tier 3 cities. But there's another part which is happening with 5G. Since it has adopted fixed wireless as well, you'll see the fixed 5G applications also proliferate, which is where Cambium is participating. So we're using the standards, and wherever there are standards, that means there are more cost-effective chips. Wherever there are more cost-effective chips, there is Cambium designing with those chips that affordable multi-gigabit wireless, and yet bringing mission-critical quality.
Atul, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time and insight.
Thanks, Joanna, and thank you for inviting me.